All right, guys, welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast. As always, presented by our good friends over at ScentLock. I've got for you a banger of an episode. I've got my good friends Gabe Ledbetter, Joey Szatmary, and Andrew Hughes, and we are coming to you from one of my favorite places on earth, Hill Creek Outfitters. We're sitting around a fire on a back deck. We're talking about our expectations for the week and all the giant bucks we're going to kill. We're talking about Joey's lessons learned from last year. We're talking about late season hunting, and much anticipated, we're talking about thoughts on the new Execute 32, the new trophy accessories, Joey's setup, and what we hooked him up with for a new hunter, and why we went with what we did. But guys, I promise you this, it's going to be a fantastic episode.
Welcome to Bear Archery's Hunting 101 podcast, where hunters new and old come to learn and find inspiration from stories of hunts gone by. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the outdoor way of life, and there is no better time to start than right now. So let's head into the great outdoors with your host, Dylan Ray.
All right, so most of you are familiar with Gabe. He was on not too long ago. Most of you are familiar with Andrew. They're from Trophy Ridge. He was on not too long ago. And if you listened about this time last year, we had National Champion, World Champion, Regional Champion, Town Champion, Strongman.
He's going to hug you after that introduction.
Joey Szatmary from the Lion's Den. Joey, give us a quick introduction to yourself.
I'm Joey, and I like to lift things, lift all sorts of things. I'm a National Champion Strongman for USS Strongman and the heavyweight 242 class and also the heavyweight 275 class, and I really enjoy the outdoors and hunting, and that's why I'm here.
All right, so last year, which by the way was a wildly popular episode, I got a lot of comments saying, hey, thanks for bringing a new hunter on and talking about his experience, talking about his journey, which was encouraging. And last year, Joey shot a doe, went to Liberty Ranch there in Oklahoma. This year, we're at Hill Creek Outfitters, and we have our eyes set on a buck. So, Joey, walk me through kind of the starting. And again, guys, if you want to hear all about last year and Joey's first hunt, jump back to about this time last year, and you'll find it where we talk with Joey about that hunt and everything he learned. But how did that play into wanting to further it this year with a buck?
Well, last year, if you guys listen to the episode, there was a crazy experience. I'll just go over real quick where I had got the doe and we waited about till lunchtime to go and check out the doe and harvest it. And when we were walking out there, I ended up seeing a 10-pointer about 15, 20 yards away. I mean, this thing was a monster, just a stud. And it was one of those experiences where, you're a little bit bummed because obviously I didn't get the buck, but at the same time, I was just hungry as ever to get that buck. So I got addicted, plain simple. I got addicted. I got buck fever, as they say, like that's running through my veins, and I don't think it'll ever go away. So now being able to come out here and have the opportunity to possibly get a buck, my first buck ever. That's a huge goal of mine, and I'm just absolutely stoked and excited about it.
Yeah. No. So I mean, ever since last year, we had our eyes set on trying to do a buck this year and making sure and trying to get some horns on the ground. And so the first guy that came to mind, one of my best friends, Gabriel Iglesias, Gabe Ledbetter, Hill Creek Outfitters
In the house, here I am.
and avid outdoorsman, really good cook, mediocre guide. I'm like, this is the guy we need to go with, And so I call him like, hey, dude, this is what I want to do. I want to bring Joey out. I want to get him a buck, and I want you to get him a buck. I didn't do anything. Gabe did all the work, but I want to try to get him a buck. And that turned into, you're a strong man. You work out. You're busting out your shirt all the time, which is just fun to be around. But I knew Andrew from Trophy Ridge is into that world. And so I'm like, well, let's tie in Bear with this in a bigger way. And so let's tie in Bear and Trophy Ridge and, have him bring down some new bows that we can shoot and play around with. And so I invited Andrew from Trophy Ridge out.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And we talked, we talked not too long ago about the new Trophy Ridge stuff and the new Bear bows. And I really wanted to bring all those here and shoot them. And so this podcast is to talk about game plans. Gabe's going to run us through kind of a game plan and what to expect, what to anticipate, and maybe walk Joey through some things. There's a big difference when you're hunting in a blind versus a tree stand and so on and so forth. So we'll walk through a few things with Joey on what to expect and how the hunt might unfold. But really, I want to talk about the new bows. My first impressions, Joey's first impressions. Andrew, walk us through the two setups. You brought me my new setup for the year, and you brought Joey a setup to hunt with.
That's right.
Walk me through those two setups.
Yeah, so I'll talk about what I brought for Joey this year. We ended up putting a Resurgence with our DHC cam in Joey's hands. It's a great bow for any archer, but especially for him getting started. It's got a great smooth draw cycle and plenty of speed, as much as he would need, and it's going to fit him really well. To pair with that, we put a shock stop stabilizer on there, makes that bow completely dead in the hand. A whisker biscuit, which is just such a no nonsense option. It's kind of like a bulletproof rest. It's very durable, and it's just going to perform when he needs it to perform. But most importantly, there is a React Pro 5-pin sight on there. That's going to make it so easy for him to shoot not only close range, which is what we're going to need in a lot of these hunting scenarios with whitetail, but it's going to help him become a better archer too, because he's going to be able to set his 20, set his 30, and he's going to be shooting at 60 before you know it, even as somebody who is relatively new to archery. So really excited to put that in Joey's hands and have him put that to work.
I do want to talk specifically about the whisker biscuit and the role it plays not only in a beginner bow hunter, but anybody really. I think the whisker biscuit, well, first off, I've told this story before, but I got a comment from some kid on social media, and he's like, "You should upgrade from a whisker biscuit, bro." And I'm like, okay, who's this kid, talking to me? And so I go to his page, and I'm like, dude, you've caught 2 fish in your life. I don't see, there's no dead animals. I'm like, but you're telling me I need to change my setup. And anyways, a whisker biscuit is a phenomenal rest. And I know people say, well, they're not consistent, all this jibber jabber, and you could easily walk through the technology behind it. But sure, old whisker biscuits, they were stiff bristles that would, knock arrows different directions. But these bristles now are so soft, and so, I shot 60 yards, and they shoot great. I've shot 100 yards with a whisker biscuit, and they shoot phenomenal. First off, most shooters are not ever good enough to outshoot their equipment anyways, much less notice a difference. I've heard the whole tunability issue, and I've never experienced it, but I've tuned 3 fletch, I've tuned 4 fletch, I've tuned heavy shafts, I've tuned light shafts, I've tuned, all that stuff in a whisker biscuit, and it all tunes fine. But for a new bow hunter, I think it's just one of the greatest tools you can have. You put your arrow in it and you forget about it. There's no locking a drop away up. There's no, there's no malfunctions. It's flawless. It's perfect.
They are extremely easy to set up.
Very, very easy to tune too.
Yeah, they are. They're extremely easy to tune. The truth is I do like shooting a drop away rest, and that's something that we have at Trophy Ridge, but I will never, ever go on a hunt and not have a whisker biscuit in my bag as a backup. And I also hunt with a whisker biscuit as well. So, I actually had a conversation with a cousin of mine recently, and he kind of had that perception of like, oh my goodness, a whisker biscuit, it has these inherent problems. I think some people, they think like, okay, the whisker biscuit's been around for a really long time. It's just the same old thing. The truth is we have continually improved it over the years, and it's as good as it's ever been. A good example I gave to him is I went to TAC this year. I went to the Utah location, or the event in Park City, and they put on a great shoot there. I shot some of the longer courses, multiple targets over 100 yards, and a whisker biscuit performed as well as the drop away I had on that same bow a few weeks prior. So, it's like the proof's in the pudding with the whisker biscuit. You put it on, your arrows tune as long as your bow is in good working order, and you can sling arrows as far as you want, honestly.
I also don't want people to think like, why don't you try a drop away? I shot a drop away for 9 years. And I was talking one day with David Blanton, who is, one of the well-known big buck killers in the world. And, if he says something, take it to the bank. And he says, hey, dude, try Whisker Biscuit. And I'm like, David, man, I don't know, dude. You're just old. You don't know new technology. And that's what I was thinking. And he said, I'll tell you what. He said, you buy a Whisker Biscuit, throw it on your bow, and if you don't like it, you shoot it for 1 year. If you don't like it, I'll personally buy you another drop away. And I was like, deal. Like, no harm in that, dude. And so I shot a Whisker Biscuit for that year and just fell in love with it, man. How easy it was, how flawless it was. I hunted in 10-degree weather with it. I chased elk around in the mountains with it. I hunted bears with it. I did, just about everything with it, and it performed in every situation I put it in. So, thanks, David. But I say all that to say this. If you're a new bow hunter and you're just getting into this, try a Whisker Biscuit. They're easy to use. It's one of the greatest tools for bow hunters. But before we go on, I got to give a thank you to our friends over at Alaskan Guide Creations. There's very few things that I have on all the time if I'm outdoors doing something, and one of those is a binocular harness. I live in my Alaskan Guide Creations. I absolutely love it. And if you're in the market for new binocular harness, I would definitely go check it out. We'll get into my bow setup here in a little bit. Joey, what's your anticipations for this hunt? Shoot giant bucks?
I would love to. That's that's why I'm here, baby, is to get my first buck. But honestly, for me, it's all about the learning experience. Since I'm a new hunter, this is my second hunting season. I want to surround myself with people that have accomplished things that I want to accomplish. I want to learn from some of the best guys and just be in the environment as much as possible. So, not to say that I don't want a buck, because I absolutely do. But if I didn't get one, there's still so many things that I can learn from being around you guys as avid hunters and outdoorsmen. And, even like practicing with the bow, right? Learning different techniques and different ways to draw, or better ways to draw, or making my shot more efficient and proficient when it comes to actually making the shot. So for me, it's just taking it in as a whole. And that's something that I'm here for. That's what I'm doing.
Well, and I'm a big proponent, man. I preach from this podcast. If you're new and you're getting into something, get an outfit, get a guide, let him teach you. And then that whole time in camp, just soak in information. And even if you're an avid whitetail hunter, like, man, I want to go elk hunting. I want to try elk hunting. I highly encourage you to start with a guide. And Gabe can speak a lot more to this because he is a guide in several states. But
preferably start with Hill Creek Outfitters.
Yes. Or Pope Brothers. But
awesome. If you want to go to Texas, go down there.
Sure. That place is phenomenal. But anyways, starting with an outfit, like if you want to go elk hunting, start with an outfit, because I hear so many guys who say, dude, I've been on every year for 9 years. I've went on a DIY hunt. Man, I had one opportunity at a cow and she hung up at 70. I'm like, dude, you spent 9 years and all this money trying to kill a big bull elk, and you haven't even seen one yet. You've seen one cow and didn't even get a shot at her. And they're like, well, dude, I can't afford an outfit. Like, that's expensive. I can't. I'm like, but for 9 years, you've spent $1,300 to do it yourself. Why not just spend the $7,000 up front, hire an outfit, and you learn so much that you can then take and use on a DIY hunt and be successful doing it yourself. Gabe, what should we anticipate for this hunt? I've hunted here before, absolutely love it. This place is literally heaven on earth for any outdoorsman. I love to come down here and camp and fish with you in the summers, and gorgeous property, and just an outdoorsman's paradise. But as far as the deer hunting goes, what can we expect?
Well, if I do my job right, you expect to have some mature deer in front of you, hopefully.
So we're not going to have any...
No pressure on me, though. But no, we got some good deer on camera. And that's kind of the deal, man. Like, our style around here is we don't like so much to hunt during the middle of the rut, just because it can be so inconsistent. You got big bucks that can happen in, but on the other hand, they're not really patternable at that point. But we're past that. They're not really chasing anymore. They're back to their pattern. So we got some good mature deer showing up on camera.
Yeah. But dude, I've said it. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Hunting in the late season, if you're hunting for any big buck, like if you just want to kill a big mature buck, hunting in the late season is the best time to do it, because they're going to be hitting
agree.
food.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you tell the guy who's listening? How do they get prepared for late season hunts? Like nasty weather, what should they be doing prep work wise to set themselves up for a late season successful hunt?
Well, first of all, that has to start long before the opening day of the season
Right.
if you're going to plan for late season. And that's really in the last 10 years. We had some conversations about this earlier. I've completely changed my style of hunting. Used to, it would be I lived for November. And it's still, there's nothing like being in the woods when bucks are just chasing like crazy. But I realized, to what you just kind of said, it is so much easier to consistently take big mature deer when you have a food source at your advantage, because after that rut is over, it's just they're malnourished, they've been running like crazy, they have some way got to put the nutrition back in them to make it through the rest of the winter. And the only thing that their mind is on at that point, after the does and everything and chasing's done, is finding a food source. And if you've got it, you will have the deer there.
Yeah.
And that's just that's why I switched my tactics to that, because it's more consistent. Yeah, there's anything, if you're sitting in a tree stand or blind in Iowa, Kansas in November, that's awesome. You're going to have an incredible time. Anything could come in. But it's just more consistent for us to do late season and kind of focus in on that.
And I explained it to Joey just like this last year. I'm like, dude, when you get done with the big strongman contest, what do you want to do? And he's like,
I want to eat.
Perfect. Perfect example.
He sounded super enthusiastic just then about that.
Oh, I really want to eat.
No, you want to eat. Like your body wants nutrients. And the same, I mean, you think about it, all November long, those deer have had a month-long workout. They've been running and gunning. They've been drowning deer in the pond. They've been fighting each other. They've been chasing them down.
And a deer has one purpose in life, and that's to survive and make it through the year. And that's what their mind goes to, is survival and food.
Right.
So, but that all starts, you got to plan for it. There's got to be preparation involved. It all starts before opening day ever comes around.
So what kind of prep, like what would you tell the guy who's like, man, I want to put more of an emphasis on my late season hunts?
Right. So, if you can't feed, if you can feed in your state, that's great. Run feeders, preferably broadcast feeders. There's been people that say, big bucks won't come to broadcast feeders. That's absolutely not true. Might be the case in counties that are extremely overhunted, and every time a buck comes by a feeder, something bad happens. So they never go by feeders. That can happen, but it's not very often anymore. So if you can feed.
Why broadcast feeders though?
Because you can control the time that a deer moves. So if you're running a gravity feeder,
and deer are natural grazers, they want to graze,
and then naturally the mature deer move right at dark. And how many times growing up did you miss out on a big mature deer because you ran out of light? It happens all the time.
Yeah.
So if you're running a broadcast feeder, you can move the feed time up, and you can literally tell your deer, if you're managing a property right, you can tell your deer what time it is to wake up and when they can go to bed, because they will. Again, it's food. If you can control the food, then you can control the whitetail, and you can tell them, hey, it's time to get up. Now it's time to go to bed.
Yeah.
That's the greatest advantage right there. And two, they won't, especially in Kansas, those big old corn-fed Kansas deer, they'll eat you out of house and home. I mean,
that's what I was going to ask you. So, you take somebody who hunts, and you can answer this too, Andrew, I'm sure. You take somebody who hunts in a primarily agricultural place, and they've got thousands of acres of winter wheat around them. How do you get them to your food source? Like there's hundreds, take my property, for instance. You're pretty familiar with my property. All around to the east, west, and south, there's winter wheat, but there's not winter wheat. They plant beans on my place. So the food source has already been cut off of my place, and you have a good answer for this. I know you do.
Yeah.
They've cut off the beans on my place, and now there's winter wheat popping up all around me. Those deer leave me. They go to the winter wheat. So how do you get to where you nail down that buck on food if their food sources are everywhere else?
Well, I know you're talking about the Kansas property, right?
Yep.
I've been trying to get Dylan to buy a feeder for a long time, a broadcast, because if you put it there, a deer's going to take corn over.
No, I'm talking about you. I'm talking about you getting the farmer to keep beans.
Oh, right. Yeah, we talked about
because that's a cheaper option,
too. Yeah,
too.
so I was going to move on to that. I was going into that when we was talking about the feeder. But if you can't feed in your state, first of all, preparation, if you can start building a relationship with your landowner, If that landowner is the farmer as well, great. If he's not, the landowner doesn't farm it, but he leases it out to a farmer, get a hold of that guy, start building a relationship. It can be stuff as simple as taking him some fudge on Christmas or something like that, or giving him a gift card so he can take his wife on a date, whatever it may be.
Helping him work.
That even better. You could tell a story about that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, but
absolutely.
no, just build a relationship with them and just start there. And then you can go on and say, hey, say this guy's got standing beans on his property, or maybe one year he's got corn. You can take a rangefinder out there and you can start ranging a section, take a buddy with you, and you can do the math on it, whatever it is. I had in my notes somewhere, but
Or you can use like a map, like your
Onyx. Yeah, Onyx. You can use
Onyx,
that.
HuntWise, Hunt Stand.
and
They
you-
all do it.
Yeah,
They
so
all-
exactly. So you can get on Onyx, perfect example, and you can map out an acre, and then you could actually take a T-post, just work it out with the farmer and say, hey, here's what a bushel of corn's going for. This is the price right now. Are you cool? If you're cool with it, I'll pay you even more than the market price is of corn, just in case it goes up. You're not losing any money no matter
You're
what.
actually saving it because you don't have to cut it.
Right, and then he doesn't have to use the extra fuel in the tractor to take that. So it's a win-win. Most of the time, surprisingly, they're open to it, and then you can pay him for maybe an acre or two of corn or beans to leave it standing, and then you've got a standing food source for the late season. Now, this is when it really gets cool, and this is the funnest style of hunting. If you get late in January and you've got standing corn or standing beans, standing corn is just unbelievable because you can take a brush hog in there. In the states that you can't feed, you can manipulate a crop. So you can't put corn on the ground, but you can go in there and you can brush hog a cornfield. And what does it do? It just destroys the corn and it scatters it everywhere.
Ah.
And you're manipulating a crop, and it's perfectly legal. You can check that out in your state personally. I know it to be the case in Missouri, but when that happens, man, the corn dust that goes everywhere, and it's just the deer know it's like, hey, there's food there. And I've sent you pictures before and be setting up northern
I've seen
Missouri.
literally 300 deer in a field before.
And it's not a joke. I mean, people be like, "Oh, that can't be real. They've got to be in a pen or something like that." That's not the case. If you have,
It's 5
food
degrees
there,
and I've got corn out.
that's the deal. That's the deal because it gets so cold and those deer have to eat. And if you destroy a bunch of corn in a cornfield, they're going to be there, and they're going to be there in numbers.
I'm anxious to hear your story because I've often said, like, it speaks volumes. It's one thing to roll up to a house and say, "Can I hunt your property?" It's another thing to roll up to a house and say, "Hey, I notice you have a pond back here. That's kind of hard to manage the banks. I'd love to weed eat your pond banks for you, and whatever it might be, or mow for you. Hey, I'll mow your home place here, your lot here." Just something like that. But I've oftentimes said that speaks way more to a farmer than just rolling up saying, "Hey, I'd like to kill your deer."
Yeah, I think, building relationships with the people where you're hunting, it's extremely important. I'm just preaching the choir here, but I do have kind of an interesting story. I've been hunting a suburban, what I would consider a suburban property for the last 10 years. And it's been an incredible blessing for me and even some of the hunting partners that I've had. But really, the story's simple. I found the property. I thought it looked like a place that would be good to hunt. And I called the gentleman that owned it and just asked to take him to lunch and tell him about who I was. And so he could kind of get a feel for me. And fortunately for me, he agreed. I found out that in retirement, he kept goats. That's just kind of the thing he did to keep himself busy. And he was a widower. So it's good for his health, but he found himself in a situation every fall when he would sell off some of the herd. The rest, he would butcher it and he'd eat on it. That'd be, a food option for him. And he paid a lot of money to get, not as much meat as you would expect. But as a hunter, I learned how to butcher animals, and I essentially offered him the service of me doing it for him. And he was absolutely ecstatic about it. And that completely changed kind of even
a
that
win-win for
conversation.
everybody.
Absolutely. So not only did it help me hone my skill, because I got more reps in every year on animals that I was able to break down. So it made me better. It benefited him. It kept him it's kept him extremely happy. And I think because of that, I have a good relationship with him and his family.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's been a blessing for everybody. And that was just because, to your point, building that relationship with the property owner, it was, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
What's going to
100%.
help you?
Yeah. And so on that, before you move on, what's cool about that though is you made it a point to build a relationship with your landowner. And I've seen so many guys lose their land
because they don't have a
just for
relationship.
that reason. That's it. Because it's just like, it's so easy to be pumped up about, I got permission on this place. You go out, you start putting up stands, and then you forget about the guy who made that possible for you to do that in that place and what he did right there. Because, and this has happened to a lot of people too, you got guys coming in from out of state, especially in big buck states. They offer their landowner $5,000. He's going to be a lot more apt to take that money from a guy who he never hears from, or a guy that butchers his animals for him. His mind's immediately going to go back to the relationship that he has with the guy that he gave permission to. So keep that in mind right there.
People just ultimately, nobody likes to get taken advantage of. They don't like the feeling that they're being taken advantage of. And I think that most people don't like the thought that somebody else would feel that about them. And so, just taking a little bit of time to give what you can, whether it be effort, whether it be time, or even friendship, depending on the situation, it just, it helps build that trust.
I don't know why this came to my mind when he talked about goats, but when you lived in Belle Plaine, do you remember? You know what I'm gonna say?
No.
When you lived in Belle Plaine, we were at Rayleigh's birthday party. They had it down there in the bottom of your place there, and you had just hung a new set or something. You're like, dude, come back here and look at this new set that I just hung, dude. It's that old barn. Right, you were hunting out of that old barn. You're like, you got to come see this old barn, dude. We're shooting out of it now. It's incredible. Yeah. And we're driving back there and we passed your goat pen. And I'm like, Gabe, I think that goat was dead back there. And you're like, nah, dude, he's probably just laying down sleeping. It's like, we go look at this barn. And I was like, it was really cool. He had this old barn and would hunt out of the barn, shoot
out of the hayloft.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, we get done looking. We come back and Gabe turns that corner. I said, dude, look, he hasn't moved. And Gabe goes, oh, my goat is dead.
I love that goat.
In the middle of a birthday party.
That's unfortunate.
Gabe's goat was dead. Joey, I'm curious to know, and I don't know how much.
Why'd you have to bring that up?
Dude, you've had more goats since then. Joey, I'm curious to know, and I don't know how much land access you have there around the Philly area. But I can't imagine it's easy to find hunting land in a massive city area like Philadelphia. So how did you go about even finding any ground?
Right. So I'm about 35, 40 minutes outside of the city of Philadelphia. It's Bucks County, ironically. So there's a good amount of farmland. There's a good amount of bucks and good hunting where I live. So the option for me was either just hunt state game lands or try to find private land. And I tried both. So I was fortunate enough to go on the hunt with you guys last year, and kind of back to Dylan's point about putting out the money for an outfitter. With the knowledge you get, it gives you a lot more confidence to be able to go out on your own, just by what you learn from the guide and the guys that you're hunting with. So I went out there, but to be honest with you, going to state game lands, just there were a lot of things about it that I didn't necessarily like.
Can be overwhelming.
Very overwhelming. It was very crowded. You're a lot more worried about your safety out there. So with that, I started to look for private property, and kind of to these guys' points, I started developing a relationship with somebody that I knew who had several acres of land, and it just came down to that, like building a relationship. How can we mutually benefit each other? So I was able to work something out with the landowner, the property owner, and be able to help out around, on the land with any help necessary. On top of that, I also was very happily able to give any meat as well, and when you kind of look at it that way too, it's like, how much money are they paying for whatever they're buying at a store versus, this is harvested right on your property. You're saving some money, and, I'm basically helping out do that just on my time. So I was very fortunate to be able to find that, which isn't always the case, but kind of going back to Andrew's point is it's genuine relationship building, and not just, hey, I want to hunt on this land, but getting to know the person, how do they work, how they operate. Same thing with them getting to know you, how you work, how you operate, and really just how can we make this as mutually beneficial as possible so that we're both feeling happy with where things are at and nobody's feeling like they're getting taken advantage of. But it comes back to the point of just being able to be around guys who've done it for a long time to learn that stuff. So I felt like I had a really big jump start to my hunting career with that opportunity and experience.
Yeah. Cause you went back and if I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but I think you told me like, yeah, dude, I actually saw some does. I got in some deer, I don't think you ever killed another one, but I think you actually, found some success, at least locating deer and, getting in and amongst them. What was the biggest lesson you learned from last year that now makes you, as a second-year hunter, makes you more comfortable going into your second year?
For me, it was, there's a handful of things. As basic as it sounds, is gear is one of them. Making sure you have the proper gear to get out there and be comfortable enough to sit out for as long as you need to sit out.
As he wears one of my favorite pieces of ScentLock clothing, the Fortress.
Right. It's one of those things where the initial investment can be a little overwhelming, but it's one of those buy once, cry once type of things where
100%.
I'm much happier by putting out the money and having a great quality product that keeps me warm and allows me to be able to hunt without having to have issues when I'm out there or having to leave or cut the hunt short. And the other thing was just kind of learning as I go on timing of day to get out there. Kind of funny story is I was heading out to a property in the afternoon and I was trying to get my tree stand. Well, for the first 3 times I got to the tree stand, the does and a couple bucks were bedded right around me, and I never knew that. Yeah. So I'd go to climb in the tree stand, boom, they'd pop up. But it was cool because it was trial and error. So then I realized, okay, if I get there at 3 o'clock, maybe I want to get there at 2 or 1. So then I found the right time to get there where that wasn't an issue. Or, I knew that I had enough time to recover for them to come back, and need to feed before they lay down to bed again. So those were some big ones. And another basic one is just making sure that you're getting out there. As simple as that sounds, getting out as much as you can, and just trying to continue to fail forward in a sense, is what I call it. Be okay with making mistakes and not also being obsessed with trying to get the biggest buck ever. I'm totally fine with a doe. I'm totally fine with, a smaller buck per se, because for me, it's about the experience. And I know if I continue to hone the skill and the craft, that day will come eventually. Right. And I think when I first got into hunting,
I'm still waiting for that day to come.
But you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people get so hooked on, all right, the first time I go out, I'm going to get this monster.
Oh yeah. Social media screwed that up for everyone.
Right. So, I kind of just totally eradicated that thought from my brain and just fell in love a lot more with the process of it and failing forward in a sense.
Well, that's what, I think, and going back to your thing about gear, I know Gabe could talk to this. I'm sure Andrew can too, but I remember being a kid, you're just stacking pairs of sweatpants to try to stay warm.
And you'll do that sometimes.
And you're miserably cold still.
And you can't even walk because you've got so many layers.
You can't climb your tree, or then it rains and then you got 94 pounds of sweatpants on because they're full of water. And you're miserable. And it's why do I do this? This sucks. But if you invest a little bit of money into good gear, and you don't have to spend thousands of dollars, I'm not saying that. Last year, Joey, we got him a really good setup of ScentLock, a basic one, one outfit type deal, and he spent a few $100, but he was comfortable.
But he said, buy once, cry once. I live by that.
100%.
And it never fails.
Until you buy again and cry again. no, but I say that
it's not the same product you're buying.
It's too easy to buy a bunch of camo, right?
Yeah, because the big lesson that I think every beginner needs to learn off the bat: if you're comfortable, you will be more successful because you'll stay longer, you'll be more still, you'll be more quiet, you'll hunt more often. It's not oh, dude, I don't want to go out there and sit in this rain. Dude, it's snowing. I can't go. Dude, it's snowing. I'm gonna freeze, dude. Usually, the times when you're miserable outdoors is when you need to be outdoors because that's when the deer are gonna move. So that's, in my opinion, I'm glad you said that because, I think sometimes it takes new hunters way too long to learn that of like, man, how do you continue to do this because I'm miserable? Well, yeah, but, we invested a little bit into a good set of base layers, into a good, raincoat, into a good, merino wool, and I'm comfortable.
It's kind of funny. Gabe kind of brought it up is when I was getting into hunting and I got a bow and I was practicing and basically like a sweatshirt or a long sleeve shirt, and draw was super easy, right? And putting a good grouping together. And then when I put on some gear for the first time, I went to go draw and it was completely different because I felt like everything was just getting tight. I felt restricted. My draw wasn't the same. I was practicing also without wearing gloves at the time. So then you got to factor in putting gloves on. So there are a lot of variables that you want to take note of. And kind of the main point that we're talking about here is comfortability. Like if you're comfortable, just like Dylan said, your success rate will be so much higher. So that's something that I was just like, okay, I grasped that point pretty early on and I'm thankful that I did. And if you're somebody who's worried about money, just plan ahead, right? Just put a couple $50 a week or $50 a month.
Stop buying Starbucks for a month,
right? Stop buying Starbucks or going to In-N-Out Burger or something like that.
I heard somebody say it one time, and I'm not going to quote it. I'm not going to quote the person, but I'll give the idea. Basically, he's talking about how guys say, "I can't afford that. I can't afford that. I can't afford that." And he said, "Dude, if you smoke cigarettes, don't tell me you can't afford to go on an elk hunt, because if you quit smoking cigarettes for the year, you can afford an elk hunt." If you quit going to the casino every Thursday night for a year, you can afford to go on an elk hunt. And the same is true with this gear that we're talking about. Like, don't tell me you can't afford good quality hunting gear when you drop $5 a day on Starbucks. Like, because if you want good quality hunting gear, stop buying Starbucks for 2 months. Go buy good coffee. I'm just kidding. Stop buying.
People find a way to do what's truly important.
Exactly.
Bottom line, they do.
Yeah.
So I agree with that 100%.
Before we move on, Gabe mentioned like learning your state's laws. I am the best tool I've ever found in hunting is seasonreport.com. It's an online hunting almanac for all things you need to know. You can save where you hunt down by the county. So I've got, this county that we're hunting in saved. I've got my counties that I hunt in Kansas saved. I've got Arkansas and Oklahoma and all these counties that I have saved. I've got them all saved onto one easy to understand, easy to use platform. I can look at every state rule, regulation, laws, bag limits, everything on one platform. It's easy to understand. It's easy to navigate. I don't have to go to clunky state agency websites. Some of those websites are a nightmare to get around and understand. This gives me everything I need to know on one easy to use platform, and it's $10 for the entire year. Code hunting101 in all caps, and I'll get you that entire platform for just $10. But like I said, for guys like Gabe, first off, if you want to eat like a king, come to Hill Creek. Because his wife, not Gabe, his wife can absolutely throw down on some cooking.
That's right.
But it's an all-in-one hunting almanac, outdoor almanac. Teaches you when to plant, when to harvest. What kind of things you should grow if you want to pair it with elk, and just a really cool tool for all things gardening, foraging, hunting, fishing. Everything on one platform for just $10. It's the best $10 you'll ever spend in hunting, in my opinion. Joey, what'd you think of that bow?
I loved it, honestly. My first impression of it was heavier than a bow I've shot in the past, but talking to these guys, I think that's more beneficial to me with just the way I'm built as an individual. I really like the grip of it.
How are you built as an individual?
Fairly large and in charge. No, I'm a big man. I'm 6'2", about 275, 80 pounds right now. But I like the setup. I like Whisker biscuits. I really do. They're great with bread too. No, but it's kind of a foolproof tool for me to use as a beginner.
Were you using a Whisker biscuit before?
I was. So for me, it was just comfortable to just get back to what I know. Yeah. In terms of the sight, usually I was using a Trophy Ridge 3-point. I don't know the exact model of it, or 3-point. Hopefully we get more than a 3-point now. But
dude, that was actually really funny.
But it was a 3-pin sight. So this one was an upgrade for sure. I had a 5-pin. Super easy to adjust. I'm sure Andrew can talk more about what I was using exactly. but everything felt smooth. The draw was super smooth, like the cam system. Quiver was cool. Upgrade from the quiver I had before is this one. I know it sounds kind of corny, but has a light on top of it.
It's the coolest tool ever.
Right. And like you get there out there early in the morning or at nighttime, you need to have some sort of light. And from what
I haven't carried a flashlight in 4 years, probably in the woods.
Used a quiver.
Use that quiver.
Yeah, it's
It
awesome.
makes it so convenient. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, man. You drop weight, it's one less.
The thing about that quiver too that Andrew might not have even walked you through, and I don't know what quiver you were using before, but I'm sure it wasn't one like this. You can adjust that quiver, and you can. So I noticed you take your quiver off when you shoot. You can adjust that quiver and suck it in as close and as far away from that bow as you want. You can cant it, lean it, tilt it, to really help you balance your bow. So whereas old quivers that stuck out way away from your bow, and it would make your bow lean that way, with that quiver, it's the same with a tight spot quiver. Everybody raves about those, which this functions the exact same, and it has a light, so it's better. But anyways, you can suck that into your riser as close as you want, and then there's tilts. You can raise it up, down, and balance your bow more. So I think Gabe shoots with a quiver on. I don't know if you do, but
Yeah, I'm a 2-piece guy. I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to when we talk about my quiver. But
Sure,
so that quiver is a magnificent tool to use. And I know he talked to you about possibly running a sidebar in the future, and that again is to where with that sidebar you can have that quiver on and it'll balance your bow perfectly, and we can play with that later on. And
yeah, I mean,
of course,
just,
build on that
just
bow,
to add
but-
to what you're saying, some of the things about that quiver, that's the light lock quiver, and it's extremely popular for us for good reason, obviously. We have grippers that fit both micro and standard diameter shafts.
I think he's using the hex light, is he not?
Oh yeah, the hex light. That's right. But the point is, so yeah, it's got grippers for micro and standard diameter shafts. There's not only a light on the top, there's actually a small light on the inside. So sometimes it can be hard to get your arrow back in your quiver, like if it's dark, and that makes it super convenient. To Dylan's point, yeah, you can get it in really close to the bow. You can adjust it vertically to make sure your arrows are kind of within the window of the bow. So when you lower it down, you don't have your nocks hitting the ground first, get full of dirt. So it's a quiver that really is going to fit anybody, and do the job you need it to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I said we'll get to that point further. I want to talk about my quiver, which my quiver is just a newer model, a revamp of the hex light. I ran the hex light for 3 years, probably, I guess, maybe 2. I don't want somebody to reach out and say that's only been out for 2 years, you liar. I ran it for as long as it's been out and love that quiver to death.
It's been around.
One thing I did want to add too is what I was really pumped about was the arrows I was using, because there was the same arrow basically that I used last year.
Dude.
Yeah, and these things are meat missiles. I don't know what they are, so Dylan, you can talk more about it, but when I looked at them, I was like, are these the same as last year? And you just grinned at me. I was like, I'm pumped.
The Freedom Missiles is what I call them.
Yeah, those things are taken out, whatever will be shot.
So Joey, we set him up with some Deer Crossing Archery silencer shafts, which is a micro diameter. He had a full stainless steel kit from Ethics Archery, and he was running a 4-fletch with a heat vane and an SK2 broadhead, which is just, last year it absolutely just punched that doe and blew her off her feet. But I'm a big fan of micro diameter. I'm a big fan of heavy arrows. Gabe says, kill them with impact. Literally when that arrow hits the target, it slaps that target. And that, I'm just a fan of it, man. And
knocks it over at 60 yards, man. One arrow and just folding the target.
Absolutely. So my bow, and I've walked you guys through my setup, so we don't necessarily have to go through that. If you didn't hear my setup, it was on the new bow episode with Ryan and Ted, and I walked through the bow I was going to be shooting and everything. But my first thoughts on the bow. This is the first time I've shot the bow. I've gotten the question 50 times of my thoughts on the new bow, and I just honestly told him, I said I haven't shot it yet, so I don't want to tell you anything because I haven't shot it. I will say, the moment you pick that bow up, so for all you haters and thugs out there saying a $1,200 bow from Bear, it's worth every penny, because I heard it so much of like, when's Bear going to compete? When's Bear going to compete? Well, if they're going to compete, as far as quality and as far as performance, and they have to raise the price. I mean, it's inevitable. It's absolutely worth every penny. It's the best shooting bow I've ever felt from Bear. It's the most, I don't want to say aesthetically pleasing because I think all Bear bows are pretty and they're good to look at, but
it looks amazing.
But just as far as like quality goes, like when you grab that bow, like you look at the limb pockets, you look at the cams, you look at the grip, you look at the finish, you look at the cuts in the riser. It is a quality bow. It's built phenomenally. I like the draw cycle way more than the refine. I didn't dislike the refine, but I didn't love it. I like the status better than the refine, but I like the execute far beyond any of those. The draw cycle is just incredible.
I think the guys that worked on the cams for the execute would love to hear it. That was
a bigger
obviously
cam.
the intent.
You want to walk me through the cam, like the cam and the limb pocket?
So yeah, absolutely. Starting at the limb pocket, we actually went to a fully machined pocket this year. It sits a little wider, so our limbs are wider on the execute than the bows that we've put before. It actually makes for just a more stable overall platform. Some of even the hardware things that we have in and around the cam, the axles are a larger diameter axle. They are stronger and stiffer. The ends of the axles are actually threaded, so screws keep everything together, as opposed to kind of the traditional E-clip. But the cam itself, it's very similar to the Echo cam system that we had on several bows before, but it is the next step, the next evolution of that cam system. And it has all the adjustability that we've had in the past, including the adjustment of let off all the way up to 90% let off. And yeah, it just has a very enjoyable draw cycle.
Right. Real life numbers. I've heard this bow. Well, first off, Mike's Archery, ran the decibel test that they always run, and the bow was quieter than any other bow that they've ever shot. That's not bro science. That's not, holy cow, that bow sounded quiet. That's running decibel tests against all of the manufacturers, all our bows. I think he said that there was one bow that was quieter from maybe last year or the year before. But anyways, so it really is whisper quiet. Very, very, very little hand shock. I said it in a video. If somebody says, dude, my bow has no hand shock, the person's a liar. You can't push force forward without there being some sort of absorbent of that shock, and there is hand shock in every bow. But this bow has very, very little hand shock. It's a joy to shoot. But real life numbers, I'm shooting a 665 grain arrow. It used to be used as a telephone pole.
The meat missile.
The meat missile. Joey's got the Freedom missiles. I've got the meat missiles. This is a 665 grain arrow, and it's shooting at 222 feet per second. That is torching, and it will knock a deer off of its feet. Hopefully this week.
I bet Joey could bench press those arrows, though.
I don't know if he could, dude.
I've been trying to curl them in my spare time here, get a good bicep pump.
We don't know that, but Joey's been staying up past bedtime and sneaking out and curling arrows.
Bedtime. You guys are on a curfew around here.
Yeah. So no, the bow is producing incredible speeds. I don't know how to do the math, but that is some incredible kinetic energy there that bow is putting out.
Yeah, we'll have to run those numbers.
Yeah, I'm sure you're a smart guy. I'm not.
I still need the calculator.
Can I just ask a question?
No.
Okay. Well, see you. No. So as more of a
raise your hand.
as more of a beginner, right? With my bow setup versus Dylan's setup, what would you say are like the key features? Say we have a beginner listening to this, and then you have somebody.
That's a good question.
Like, what would be the difference in the two bows feature wise, and what is that doing for the bow and the hunt exactly?
So, just right off the bat, I think the thing that's going to affect that, well, I'll say a lot of beginner hunters, is there is a price point difference. I mean, Dylan made the comment that the Execute is the most expensive bear bow that we've made to date. And there are obviously reasons for that. That doesn't mean that the bows that we have at lower price points are overall lower quality. They just don't have all the bells and whistles. Does that mean that you have to have it to shoot a deer at 20 yards and make a great shot? No, you don't.
Let's rewind that real quick. my favorite statement in the world, I had a guy say this. He said, dude, I couldn't shoot a bear. I said, really, why not? And he alluded to them not being good enough. And I said, man, dude, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but there's this guy named Chuck Adams, and he's shooting a Bear Alaskan, which is a budget bow. I don't know the price point of his bow necessarily.
Yeah, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it falls right in the middle of our kind of price range.
Yeah, which is the same for the
very
Alaskan.
affordable, absolutely.
So Fred's shooting a Bear Alaskan, which is a $550 bow. Went to Alaska with it, and you hear guys say, "Well, yeah, bear's fine for the whitetail woods in the Midwest," but I chase them around in Wyoming, and I'm like, well, Chuck just took his to Alaska and killed 3 new world records in a month. So
and he's also a walking legend. So if it's good enough for him, you have to ask yourself, is it good enough for anybody?
Yeah, no kidding. So you don't need to drop $1,200 on a bow to kill animals. Ask Chuck.
Not at all. But
to go back, Andrew, actually, my brother asked me this question last night. He said, so what is the EKO cam? Like, what makes that different? And I'm like, well, it's just, that's their cam. Like, that's like saying a Hemi versus a whatever engine, It's
Yeah, I
just
mean, a lot of things in the archery industry, we know there's names kind of given to bow technology to make it more recognizable to the consumer. And the EKO cam is that's what we've named it. It definitely refers to the cam that we designed to give ultimate adjustability to the archer.
Right. So my analogy was, like, there's different transmissions, Allison transmission versus a Dodge transmission or whatever. That cam is going to do the same thing that every other manufacturer's cams do. My cam, the EKO cam, is going to do the exact same thing that Joey's. What cam is on that bow?
That's what we call the DHC cam.
The DHC cam. They're going to do the exact same thing. They're just going to be shaped a little different. They're going to be sized a little different. They're going to have a little bit different adjustabilities. The draw links are going to change. Just the way you change.
And they
draw
do
links are gonna be
function
different.
slightly differently. I mean, there's different types of cam systems on the market. There's binary. There's hybrid.
Singles,
2 cams, single
yeah.
cam. And that is actually kind of one of the differences between these two bows. And it affects the total amount of adjustability. So, Joey's bow, we can set it at, I believe, 85% let off. And that's basically what the cam is designed to do at all the draw links, versus having something like a Echo cam where you can set the let off either higher or lower. So you're going to pay a little bit more for a feature like that. But it's still going to serve Joey awesome. That
Right.
bow's going to shoot well in his hands, even without that extra layer of adjustability.
I know a guy that shot a moose with a Bear Legit, which is a
Oh, that's so awesome.
$299 bow. I mean, it's the same bow that I literally bought my 7-year-old kid. And it's a wildly adjustable bow from like 7 pounds to 70 pounds. Like, literally, Harper can shoot it and you can shoot it. And this guy shot a moose with it. And so everybody that says, like, oh, dude, like, I've got to spend $2,000 on a bow, and we're kind of contradicting ourselves because we're talking about buy once, cry once, and good gear is worth it. But when it comes to bows, every bow is going to perform these days. You're not going to get a bow that doesn't perform. But there's literally people that are shooting moose with a Legit. That's a $299 bow.
I think it kind of also comes down to, okay, what are you adding to the bow to give it the features that are going to warrant a higher price point? So making that kind of ultimate gap between, say, a Legit, which is kind of one of our most affordable bow options that fits the broadest number of people, versus an Execute that we're releasing the best bow technology we've ever done as a company. Just some of the vibration reduction stuff that comes on the Execute bow right out of the box. There are more things there. There's more development that's gone into it. The engineers here at Bear, and myself included, not necessarily on that bow, but just across the board, we're always trying to make things better. And the guys that worked on the Execute absolutely did that. So they might be adding things to the bow that we don't put on, say, a Legit. So you are paying a little bit more for those features, and it's just ultimately improving the shot experience for the
Right.
archer.
You're talking about cars, so I think it alluded to like the what package, what chrome
LT,
package. 'Cause you
LTZ.
can buy a Chevy Suburban, in any kind of package you want, but you're going to end up paying more for different features, like you're saying. So it's not like you're missing out on quality when you buy what you guys call the budget bows. I mean, they're
Right.
good bows.
That's a good example for sure.
But you can also spend more money and get more bells and whistles, premium sound system in that car, chrome package, leather seats, heated seats. They throw so many things in
Premium
them.
sound
Yeah.
system so you can listen to the singing Ledbetters while you're driving down the road.
Yes. Or the Bear Hunting 101 podcast.
Ooh, or the Joey Szatmary
You gave me a-
Strongman podcast.
Yeah, you gave me a plug and I just sent it right back at you.
Dude, I appreciate that greatly.
Yeah.
But if they're listening to this podcast, you don't need to promote them to listen to this podcast or listen to this podcast.
Good point.
Um,
Why'd you have to bring that up too?
You know, I think we definitely need to talk about the sight that you've got
oh
on your new
snap!
bow.
Oh snap! I hate it, but I love it because I hate single pins. But I literally looked at you and I said, "Dude, I don't like single pins, and I love this sight." And again, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I'm not just speaking out of the side of my mouth. I made it a commitment to shoot a single pin for 1 year. I took it on hog hunts down in Texas with Gabe. Took it on javelina hunts. Took it on whitetail hunts. Took it, you know, I gave it its chance. Like I'm like, you know, I'm not going to say I don't like it until I really, really, truly hunt with it. And I just didn't like it. But I love this sight. I love it. You brought me this bow and you said it's somewhat sighted in at 20. Should be close.
Sure. I mean, as far as the difference in the
Right,
grips
yeah,
that you
exactly.
and I have, you know, it's
Which speaking of
on
grips,
the board.
speaking of grips, the grip on the Execute is they redid that grip and holla at your boy, it's good. But anyways, and Gabe, I'm going to get your thought because you did shoot it, but you said it's somewhat sighted in. I shot one arrow, punched the center of the target at 20. I'm like, well, that's good. And due to the digital react technology, you said, now based off of that shot, I put in 222 feet per second.
That's right. That's what I measured your arrows at in the lab.
Didn't have to, I literally didn't touch anything else. I shot 10 arrows. I know for a fact I shot 10 arrows at 20, 23, 25, that area. Shot 10 arrows. And then I'm like, you know what, dude, let's just see how good this technology is. See how well it works. And I was up on the deck. Now the one I did in the video, I wasn't, but I was up on the deck for the first 60-yard shot, and you're like, dude, you're just gonna drop it? Like you
roll
you
it
said
to
from
60,
down there,
baby.
like, you're just gonna launch one? I'm like, you say your technology works, why not? And so I cranked that down to 60, and I put 3 arrows in the target. I mean, I was like, dude, this technology works.
Dropped a 5,000 grain bomb at 60 yards.
And then when it hit that target, dude, it went off like a stinking, like Joey punching bag. It went off.
I mean, seriously, to think about the fact that you could just roll a sight to 60, that you put 10 arrows through at 20 yards, essentially.
Not only a new sight, I put 10 arrows through this bow. It's a new bow. It's a new release. It's literally everything was. I never shot this bow, this release, these arrows, this sight, but 10 shots. I go out to 60, elevated from a deck downhill, and put them on the target. I'm like, dude, this sight is the real deal.
Yeah, and you know the cool thing is, one of the guys at work, one of the things he loves about the digital rack the most is, let's say he's, he's out shooting in his yard and he's just trying to, shoot some hunting scenarios. He's not always going to stand at 30 or 40 or 50. He's like, if I want to go stand at 62, I can stand at 62 yards, and then I can just roll the sight and it says 62 yards on the sight, and it's going to hit where I'm aiming.
Now, I will say this. I have, and I've said this for the last 2 years on this podcast, my favorite sight is a 3-pin slider on a dovetail. I will probably most likely put a trio head on that sight because I still get all the technology. I'm not changing the technology. I'm not changing how any of that works. I'm just putting a 3-pin sight housing on that so I have 20, 30, 40.
And you absolutely can do that.
Yeah.
Too.
And
that's
then
some of the versatility in that sight.
And then I can still dial it out and shoot 62.5. You said
that's
you
right.
Said 0.5. Yes, I can do half-yard increments with this bow sight. Not that anybody. I shouldn't say anybody, but
there are a select few. Very
none of
select
us are
few
going to shoot a
archers
half-yard difference. I can tell you that. Especially not Gabe. But sorry, bro, I had to throw that in there. You did miss my target. You lost one of my arrows because you missed the target.
You better tell the truth now. Come on.
That is the truth. You missed the target, lost my arrow.
That's true, but he handed me the bow with the react sight on 40 yards, and we're at 20.
Or like 18, actually.
18 yards, and it's set for 40 yards, and you got one pin. So it's not like I, messed the pins
I guess it's up to the shooter to make sure his equipment's ready, though.
Gosh, he's really throwing me under the bus, man.
No, it was 100% my fault. But one time, me and Adam Leichner were.
Should I tell him about all the cactuses you shot when
all
we
the
was in
cacti?
Texas? Cacti, that's correct.
Sure.
He shot at least 3 when we was in Texas.
You made it sound like I was going to shoot 112. You're like, dude, he shot at least 3.
Yeah, they're good shots though.
Yeah, I put a hole in the cactus. But no, one time Adam Leichner said, "Hey, can I shoot your bow?" And we were at a bow shop. I said, "Sure, yeah." Never even thought about it. Like we weren't. He grabbed it and went off and shot, and I heard "Ka-pow!" And I'm like, "What just happened to my bow?" And I walk in there, and there's my arrow stuck in the ceiling up there. And he's standing at 20 yards. I'm like, "Dude, what did you do?" Like, because Adam's a good shot, and I'm like, "What did you do?" And I'm like, "Oh crap, dude! I was shooting at 120 yards last night." I said, "Let me see that sight real quick," and the sight was dialed all the way down to 120. So he's sitting there at 20. He might have been at 30, but he's sitting there, and he just launches it and hits it right in the ceiling. So yeah, it was 100% my fault. But you did get to shoot the bow.
Yeah.
You shot the Execute. You shot the Refine last year. You shot the Redemption. What did you think the Execute compares to it?
Well, I absolutely hate sounding cliche. So
I really thought you were going to say I absolutely hate the bow. And I'm
no, I'm not going
really?
there. I just don't want to be like, oh, it's the greatest thing I ever shot, but because it just sounds so cliche. But man, I would say like kudos to Bear because that's phenomenal piece of equipment. The draw cycle, unbelievable. The back wall, I'm going to go ahead and say that Donald Trump built that back wall because it is solid.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for
Who
real,
knew? Who knew? Bear Archery hired Trump.
It's just a great bow. I'll say that. It really is phenomenal.
You're gonna have some massive rumors going around, by the way.
Did we just get political on this?
Nope, we didn't.
All right.
We'll blame it on Joey. Speaking of that, I'm gonna throw it to you, Joey. I ask every single one of my guests, and I'm not gonna ask these two thugs because I don't want to. But I ask every single one of my guests, what's a hunting 101 tech tip you've got for us? Something that you can give me to make myself a better hunter with. So I'm going to stop. I haven't told you what I'm going to ask you. I'm giving you specifics here. The biggest lesson you learned in your first year that has applied to this year. And then secondly, something for somebody to train. Because I hear it all the time. They're like, well, dude, I live in the city. I can't shoot. But you can still strengthen those muscles. You can still improve your health to be a better shot at your house in your basement, really. Which my brother is a strong believer in shooting a bow makes you a better bow shot. He said one time he told me it was on a podcast with Aaron Schneider, and he said Michael Jordan was quoted as somebody asked him, how do I jump higher? And he said, jump more. And so to be a better bow shot, there is absolutely no substitute for shooting your bow more. That's not what I'm promoting here. But if there was a couple of exercises that somebody could implement to make them more stable in their holding, to make them stronger in their draw, maybe it's somebody, like my wife, for instance, who's trying to build her draw weight up. What are some things that they can do at home to build that strength and to be a better bow shot?
Am I allowed to talk now?
Yep.
All right. So first question was a tip in general from my first hunt.
Yep.
Hands down, find a guide or an outfitter. 100%. Be around people who have done what you are looking to do or are at the level at which you aspire to be at. Mentor, friend, buddy, family member, anybody that you can. And if it comes down to finances, it is 100% worth putting the money into it because you will get that money back tenfold in the knowledge that you acquire and then the confidence you gain to do it on your own.
The moment I just went on an elk hunt, and the moment I got out of that truck, I said, hi, my name's Dylan Ray. Nice to meet you. I'm excited to hunt with you. And I said, so this time of year, what do you think the elk are doing? What elevation do you think they're at? Where, just asking him everything I can ask him because I want to come home with as much elk knowledge as I can possibly gain in that 1 week. So 100%. And don't be afraid to ask questions when you're with somebody like that. Lifting tips.
Lifting tips, for me, I think the most applicable to people will be to strengthen your upper back. And I think some exercises that will really help. If you can do pull-ups, awesome. If you can't do pull-ups, something like a recline row, or a lot of people have TRX systems, or even rings, like gymnastics rings. You can do those rows off the rings to help build that upper back. And I'm a big proponent of like getting your rear delt stronger in general. I think a lot of people neglect rear delt work. I think a lot of people want anterior and lateral delts, but if you can strengthen the rear delts by doing some bent over rear delt flies, or even something like, what are you laughing
Gabe
at?
said, "What's a delt?"
It's this hunk of meat on your shoulder.
He said, "Do I have delts?"
Listen.
How do my delts look?
Listen, when I first saw Gabe, at first I thought that's a stout man. He has a horse
Specimen.
neck.
I'm
Horse neck and some
I'm putting you on the
forearms.
biggest buck on this property.
Yeah, so
That does it. We're killing a monster.
so hit those muscles, and yeah, just I think a lot of pulling movement patterns will help people, especially in the upper body region. Yeah, I'll keep it there. Just I think it's a solid place to start when it comes to just getting better at your draw, and stability in the upper body to be able to maintain that position to pull off a nice shot.
Where can they find you on social media, Joey?
They can find me Zat Strength on all platforms, SZAT, then the word strength. If you type it in Google or any social media, that's where you can find me.
Gabe, where can they find more information about Hill Creek?
Probably best bet is to hit me up on Instagram. Send me a direct message, Gabe_the Way Outdoors, and let's have a conversation.
Obviously, Trophy Ridge, Bear Archery, guys. I would 100%. I promise you this: do not write off this Execute 32. Do not write off the Digital React technology. I would highly encourage you to find a dealer and shoot. I would encourage you to shoot every bow. Pick them all up because they're going to fit you different. They're going to feel different. You know, a bow that I love, you might not love. A bow that Gabe loves, I might hate. So pick up every bow, shoot them all, but do not write off the Execute 32 because it will perform with every single bow on the market. I promise you that. But before we go, I got to give one more shout out to my friends over at Nick's Knife Works. I know Gabe is, pretty much every outdoorsman is, a fan of knives. My boy Nick Deeker from Kansas and Wichita does it and does it really well. He'll build you a custom knife exactly how you want it. I was showing Gabe mine earlier. Like I told you, I'm a huge fan of wearing a binocular harness at all times. I literally sent him dimensions. I sent him measurements of my binocular harness. I said I want it to be really light. I want it to fit right here. I want it to be oriented so I can grab it just like this, and that's what he built me. And that knife stays on my binocular harness at all times, so I've got a knife with me. But guys, check out Nick's Knife Works. But thanks for listening, and you guys have a fantastic week.